I got involved with Sunil Gavaskar. It was a huge success. It is the book which I can proudly say today that no cricketing book ever in the world has sold so much and has lasted so much. Myself and Gundappa Vishwanath became very pal because he would do a lot of unnecessary things, have beer during the test match and put the crate below the bed. So when the general manager of Indian cricket team, G.S. Ramchandran would come, he was very hard taskmaster. So I'll make sure that he does not see. So I gave it to two of my trusted Muslim friends. Because of this relationship, people would believe me. And they were highly literate people. One is alive, one is dead. I said, there's nothing in this. Okay. When there's nothing in this, and I'm not that literate to understand Salman's game in the literature, what it was. So it was cleared. And the third book was that it was a real problem, and you can ask Mark Tully. We imported Amritsar, Mrs. Gandhi's last battle. And that was stopped at the behest of the top power of India, who was the head of the country at that time. So once I was out of hospital, the doctor advised that I should not step up in the house, should be on the ground floor. Fortunately, we had a room there, and movement will be restricted, activities. So I was unlike that. I will never listen to these things. But I had a companion to myself because I had books with me. My library at home was very strong. And I had a passion to writing earlier because I said my wife after my marriage stopped my diary writing. And at that time I had about 20 diaries with me. And she found it to be very boring and everyday story and all that. And she said, no, you can't write it. It's okay. But my memory never failed me. So somewhere or other, what happened, you used to my table diary. No? So in table appointments were like this only. So whatever maybe things I would write down at the bottom. So those diaries, I think about 3-4 years I destroyed. Stayed for 30-35 years. So when I went back to the non-official work staying at home, then I thought I have to do something. So it was music management, my passion, and this reading. So I started reading, and then reading I was not able to do because too many medicines and all that. Then I called long pads and started jotting down whatever I have done. So the first thing I did was the 10 days of the journey in the hospital. And then I started writing that itself. When we started in 1935-1936, it was a family saga issue. Because 3 grandfathers I had it, and we were distributor for Anderson and Wright. Handkerchiefs, and it was a good business. We still have that office in Calcutta. I saw it in Bada Bazaar with my uncles and all that. So my granduncle, the youngest one, he never wanted to be a subsidiary in the home because other brothers were elder to him. So he felt something to do it. But then he got an opportunity as God sent to by somebody, K. Jackson Marshall. And my grandfather, who was sandwiched between the two in the family, he wanted to make a compromise and he tried there and then without getting involved with any of the brothers. And fortunately my father got involved with my granduncle. So the business of distribution started from there. And still when I go to Grand Hotel, I see now the Grand Hotel has been invaded by hawkers. Otherwise the place was full of books at that time.
Really?
Well, I would say 15 years ago, before Mamata Banerjee has come, it was nothing but the passage for books all the time. And very good bookshops were there, small hawkers. So it started from there, from College Street and this place, and I found the journey very interesting. When we could not get admission in the After All India competitive, it was a very frustrating time. And that's a gap which probably my granduncle helped me to organize myself, giving me a travel ticket. And there used to be All India travel ticket at that time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
370 rupees, you can go anywhere and all that. And you can break the journey after 300 kilometers and all that. So I went with my cousin brother, and then at that point of time, a lot of learning took place. Namudribad was installed as the Chief Minister of Kerala. Everything was closed, but bookshops were open. So when you go to the bookshop, you learn so many things. Then I found this is something fascinating happening. Then Bangalore also had numbers. So we got into this, I got into this system. And then at that time, Rupa was only distributing. And maybe 10 titles we used to publish it, not publish it, reprint it from the foreign publishers. Because there was a problem of import into India. There used to be license, and non-fiction license used to be there. At one time, there used to be license for fiction, and suppose your business is 10 lakh. So they will give you a license of 1 lakh for your fiction import and 9 lakhs for non-fiction import. After later it got changed because non-fiction has no limit, the fiction had its own limit. It used to be according to the turnover. And at that time our license was only being utilized for the Penguin import. And most of the Collins titles used to come from non-fiction side. As business grew in 70s, and when I got involved into this in Delhi, I found that it is a policy which the government of India is really killing the trade. So, and the lucky part of the life was that being a distributor for Penguin, and when we came to Delhi, Rupa was already known for Penguin distribution because Presidency College was across our office. And name anybody, they would know us. We were sandwiched between Presidency College on the one side and the coffee house on the other side. Mrinal Sen, Satyajit Ray, Ritik Ghatak, I've seen from my own eyes. Kanu Sanyal, Charu Majumdar, Pritish Nandi. Pritish Nandi was a student. Mamje Akbar, Mandira Sen, that lady Aparna Sen. Sarmila had a sister or somebody. They all used to be in the coffee house. And when they used to go to the coffee house from Presidency College, they would come to Rupa because there may not be table available there. So that all happened. And many times my office people of those days were very smart. And they know how to please others. So they would call the coffee from coffee house to them, and they will have a free coffee and buy books also. At that time I met Ashok Mitra, Sukma Chakravarti. There was a gentleman called Habibur Rahman. I have not mentioned about him. So I lost all details about him. And the family of Humayun Kabir, Leela Kabir, George Fernandez's wife, I have not mentioned here. They were there.
From Humayun, and Humayun Kabir was your first customer, right?
You ask a piece, what your father would do on an auspicious occasion. I will always do things inviting a Muslim to do that for me. So everybody gets upset. What is there to be upset about? He's a human being, I'm a human being. So the journey started when it came to Delhi. The politics and the topography of bureaucracy was very different here. Either it was South Indian or it was Calcuttan. There was nobody else, nobody from UP. Some Allahabadi and Kashmiris were there, that's it. So I had very good rapport with them. Then whenever I used to suggest something, they would say this young man is saying very interesting thing. Then they will call me. Once they started calling me, the federation, or they got myself involved into that, and at that time we expanded things, and by the time Narasimha Rao came, things were changing very rapidly. So in 76, when I got an opportunity to start publishing myself, because my grandfather said, now situation in Calcutta is in turmoil, we have to make another arrangement, because he has seen Second World War and all this thing, to do something. And Delhi printing and technology was improving a lot, which used to be earlier Calcutta. So we started bringing books we were doing there, printing it here. And at that time, I got involved with Sunil Gavaskar. It was a huge success. It is the book which I can proudly say today that no cricketing book ever in the world has sold so much and has lasted so much. So when it worked, then I found that there are a lot of other things we can do. And at that time, fortunately, when I was meeting Sunil, I could meet anybody because Chandrasekhar used to be in the room, Prasanna, myself and Gundappa Vishwanath became very pal because he would do a lot of unnecessary things, have beer during the test match and put the crate below the bed. So when the general manager of Indian cricket team, G.S. Ramchandran would come, he was very hard taskmaster. So I'll make sure that he does not see. Then I spoke to Prasanna, Farooq engineer, and Prasanna immediately agreed. I should know Prasanna has a wife which is Bengali. So it went very well. We did second book, his book, one more over. And then my relationship with the other cricketers started and we started doing books. And one after another, when cricket sells, everything sells. And at that point of time, number of authors got involved and gradually, publishing is not made one day. It takes years to build up. And it's very difficult to destroy because if you have good literature, you cannot destroy it at all. And it will live for years. And then we built up. When Idols came, his second book, which we sold about 130,000 copies in 1 year's time. Nobody can think of a cricket book selling like that.
And you say that you took the photograph? There was
Yes,
no budget?
I had no budget. Believe me, we had no budget. 82. Company has passed through the traumatic effect of Calcutta. Publishing has been changing. And I should ask Sunil, how do you do that? Then the photographer said he would tired and he was not ready. As soon as he heard Sunil Gavaskar, rate would go to 10,000 rupees or so. So I took Sunil to the DTC ground and he was practicing and I was doing the photograph. And we used that photograph, Idols, for years together.
And you had...
So and no, then I said, now he wrote Idols. And that Clive Lloyd in his speech says that Clive came to launch this book, Kapil Dev, and Clive says, this is your handwriting? Yes. So Clive has given me his autobiography signed for me, saying that you print it. I've got it on the Rajen office. That book is still with me. So relationship grew, then gradually authorship also grew. Then at that time we realized that over a period of time, Indian publishing is going to change. When Penguin came into India as a publisher, we knew that they are going to dominate. By the time Rupa had itself about 150 authors to themselves. Then we expanded into non-fiction, and non-fiction in an area which Penguin will not get, like food. Penguin Khashwant Singh was trying to build up a literary list. So he was trying to do a book like Delhi or M.J. Akbar's Riots and After Riots. But fortunately, those books were distributed by us. So we were on the other side, we were identified with the Penguin distribution, with the Indian authorship, and on the other side, we were doing our own publishing, which grew very fast. And then college made all kinds of offer, and we had a little difference with Penguin, but it is not that the parting should take place. But the gentlemen who were doing the publishing business at that time had all changed because the corporate sector has taken over. And new team decided not to carry on. Then it became a blessing in disguise for us. No, Salman's relationship happened because in 1983 when I went to London, before that he had written that Midnight Children. And before Midnight Children he wrote a novel called Girmas. Girmas did not do very well. It was done by Grafton. It was lost. And Salman has been an Indian more rather than a Pakistani. So he had a problem with himself on this. He was painful. Then when he wrote Midnight Children, it became a hit everywhere and got the Booker Award. A friend of mine sent me a Christmas gift from there. Nobody knew about that book at that time and started working. And it so happened that we took over the distribution of Pan at that time and we were given the distribution for Midnight Children. So Midnight Children distribution came. The problem was the number of copies you can import. So at that time the limit to import was 2,000 copies, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. It became an issue. So I told Sunny Mehta that this is what they're going to be. So what is the way out? So I said, what could be the sales for this? The next book, third book was same. So I said, you leave it to me. And Sunny believed me. Sunny, outstanding publisher. He could understand who is talking to him what. He could understand business, he could understand authors. So I said, you give it to me. Sunny signed a contract with us for the book on same, and our first print run was 30,000 copies.
Wow.
And we did it at 30 rupees. So at that time, it was due to be launched in August, and I was in London in July. So I took an advance copy with me. So as soon as I reached the office, hotel, I had a message that the PAN board would like to meet me next day, and I went. So they were surprised to see the quality and everything. Salman was staying very close by, and he was called. And Salman came to, I remember, in pajama kurta that day in the office, and we talked about it. So he was very pleased. We had our lunch and all that. And then our relationship grew. Then I found where I was staying, his house was very nearby. So he had another reason for that. And then all his books we continued to handle, whether it was Penguin or with a PAN or anybody. And his literary agent were very clear about that. Problem started when Satanic Verses came. And I would not like to comment who messed up the things in publishing, but I can say outside the publishing who did it, I will tell you. It was really unprofessional for me. And the manuscript was with Penguin, and they gave it to me to read it. So I kept it for a while and I didn't read it. Then they said that our company has decided not to publish it, but do we import it? Do you think any will be a problem? So I gave it to two of my trusted Muslim friends. Because of this relationship, people would believe me. And they were highly literate people. One is alive, one is dead. I said, there's nothing in this. Okay. When there's nothing in this, and I'm not that literate to understand Salman's game in the literature, what it was. So it was cleared. So 500 copies we imported, a hardcover. That was to be sufficient for that time mark. Believe me, 5 or 6 copies did not sell on the first day. So I was surprised. Next day, in the afternoon, Tejashwar Singh telephoned me. And he said, R.K., you know that you have done what you have done. And you were very friendly. My relations with the trade was very good. So he said, what have you done? And he was working with Macmillan's at that time. So I said, what I have done? No, sorry, he has left Macmillan, he was doing Sage.
He was Sage,
So he said, Rajen, you know, this book is going to be banned. I said, what for? For that we can talk later when we meet. But I know that Bhuta Singh has recommended on a letter based on Sayyid Sayabuddin to Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, and there is going to be an announcement. You have to be very careful about this. And our office at that time was in Jama Masjid area, Jagat Cinema next to that. So he was real concerned. So I said, don't worry, we'll see what happens. And 9 o'clock, I was listening to Doordarshan News, and Tejashwar was on the screen, and he said, after 3-4, he said, this is banned. So anyway, the matter was over, and next day I got to the office early and I had an ambassador car. I used to drive myself. So I put all my stocks into that and then left. First call came at 9 o'clock, Mr. Shamlal ji. And he asked for a copy of it. सर आपको मिल जाएगी, कहाँ चाहिए? आप ऑफिस में भिजवा दें? नहीं सर, ऑफिस में नहीं भिजवाएं. तो कैसे होगा? हमने कहा साहब बता दीजिए, घर यहाँ तो किताब है नहीं हमारे पास. तो they do understand what it. ठीक है, हम टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया पहुँचेंगे, यहाँ पे 10 नंबर में मंगवा लेंगे. That was across the route. You understand. तो मुझे 5 कॉपी चाहिए तेरी. तो खैर anyway. And we were in Patodi House Road, which is just across the... No, there was an overbridge in the Reagan. One side was 10 the Reagan, and this side was my office. So I sent it to him. And by the evening, we have sold almost about in the entire stocks. And then Salman got into trouble immediately after that. And issue became very serious. By the time we had already ordered 20,000 copies to Penguin, with the special permission to import on a license which we had it, But then it had to be stopped at Heathrow airport. We did not allow it to get into that. And then I could not meet Salman for a very, very long time. He went underground. And literary agent would organize some kind of conversation if I wish to do it when I go to London, but very once or twice. But when the ban was lifted, not lifted, but his next book came, Moore's Last Sigh. Again there was a problem, so Shiv Sena created problem, so it was stopped. We went to the court, we won the case, and then it was allowed. But then the relationship has been. But his good part, how he wrote the book Harun, another story, which is very good book, and a number of others after that. When India celebrated 50 years of independence, 97, I was in London in 96. I spoke to Salman that, why don't you do a book called Indian Writing? He said, that's a brilliant idea, but I don't have any literature. He said, I'll provide you. So I sent him a bunch of books. He did it, one book of vintage writing. But then he was blamed by the press that the book is not, his writing is not quality. So he said, he made it sure he make a statement, the book sells. He made a statement, the Indians translate in such a way that the quality cannot be improved further. So I think we had 20,000 copies at that time, it sold. So parallelly we have been on the same thought that the freedom of word should always be allowed. And when there is a problem of, it should be sorted out rather than this kind of crisis. But it has been, the policy of this freedom has been subject to review all the time. There have been 3 more cases with me. Once happened in 1971 or 72, if I remember. You know, we were into serious trouble with Gulag Archipelago, Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Really?
Yes. I was in Delhi and we had imported 500 copies here and 500 copies in Calcutta. And the book was imported in a flat seats so that we don't lose time. As soon as the book is published, it comes to India and we'll bind it, and then, because binding takes a lot of time in England. So we had a strategical arrangement for business. So the book came to Calcutta, and the Calcutta custom, you know, they are well-read people. They stopped the book. And there used to be a paper called Hindustan Standard at that time. It was Anand Bajar Statesman, Amrita Vihar Patrika, and Hindustan Standard. Hindustan Standard published a front page story, top story, Gulag stopped. And Mrs. Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister at that time. So I was alerted by my father that, look, it is going to happen, you may get into trouble, you have got the books. So the book is my go down. We have already got it, it's cleared. So he said, better you remove it. So, but I said, the problem is that your jackets have been detained there. So he said, no, jackets have been released by the custom without realizing, and they kept the book. So I said, you send the jacket to Delhi. So we had a special person coming from train to Delhi with the Gulag jacket. We got it bound. Then we found that I would get into problem because I'm very close to power here. So the entire stock we transferred to Bombay. And you have heard a name called Strand Bookstall?
Yes, of course.
I knew Mr. Sandbag very well. So I went to Bombay. I said, Sandbag, this is happening. So don't worry, stocks are, I said, I'll give you 24. So we transferred the stock from here to Bombay with the jackets, and Sandbag has a company called Ocean Bindery. He bound it there and we released the book. And Mrs. Gandhi could not do anything. What happened ultimately, the book was pirated. And have you seen the Sahgal brothers? South Extension? It's gone now. Russians used to queue and buy books there, though they won't read English, but it was anti-establishment. So Gulag became a hit. So we could see what the government of India's policy on books were there. In Salman case also happened because what Sayyid Sahabuddin wrote to Rajiv Gandhi. Sayyid Sahab has not read the book at all. And we did a book on Dictionary of Islam, which I think is still in print. He wrote me a very nasty letter. This is. So I said, Salman Sahab, why don't you revise it and give it to me? He kept quiet after that. वो रहते थे 19 जनपद पे. And the third book was that it was a real problem, and you can ask Mark Tully. We imported Amritsar, Mrs. Gandhi's last battle. And that was stopped at the behest of the top power of India, who was the head of the country at that time. And then this issue started, what to do about it. I immediately flew to London and then talked to Sunny. I said, the best is that I print it there. Let them arrest me there. So I got the rights from him and we printed 50,000 copies here, Amritsar. And book sold like hotcake. Only thing that we could not give the book for designing the cover outside. So what we did is we used this Gerua color and with the embossing of Golden Temple photograph. It sold like hotcake. Mark truly could not understand that this kind of sense. But then it was also showing to the world what our English market is there. And at times they felt the English market is bigger than the English themselves there.
Yeah, and I think it is now. It really is. In some ways, at least the English reading audience, I don't know whether...
No, but I could not get my photograph with Sydney Sheldon on this issue.
In this issue, I know I was going to...
So Sydney was surprised. He called me. And then he said, how come that my books are not selling so much? Master of the Game is sold 1 lakh copies on the day one. I said, people want to read. We are hungry. And what has happened, that we have followed Shakespeare all the time reading English. We have not read anything of our own literature. So I had some problem yesterday. I wanted to read Amritlal Nagar's book again. And that Hindi is becoming difficult to read because we are in another way. And that sold. So they were surprised. So now what the world has seen, that India has grown from pre-partition days to the next century now or thereafter. And by mid-2050, you will see all over the world that our books will dominate. Their books will be, even in textbooks, even in your journal books or academic books, whatever you say. I think a lot of things are happening. Advani ji has been a very different person. He's a very ground to earth. We published a book called Dictionary of Dates. And I have never been indulging in politics. Maybe meeting somebody, but never for purpose of politics or any advantage. So I we published a book, his date of birth was wrongly mentioned, 1 year here or there. So he wrote a letter that we find that a company like Rupa has done this mistake. So I immediately checked with the author, mistake was there, apparently sent an apology and we corrected it. He thanked me personally, that I was surprised. I would not have expected him at that time. I think at that time he was Deputy Prime Minister. Probably it had hit him somewhere and and we were in the bird of books, so he's a man who always reads, not now, but all the time. So he would know about us. And from the very beginning, I've been very particular about certain things. That as far as our Indian culture and ethos are concerned, irrespective of any caste, religion, we should publish it. We did a book of B.N. Pandey called Book of India, which was 60 years ago. It's a classic book, like A.L. Basan's Book of Wonder that was India. If you compare, both the books should be companion literature in Indian history and civilization of the people. So Advani ji is a person who has noticed it. We did a book called India and World Civilization by D.P. Singhal, same thing. Now, a relationship is built in the intellectual level. That is the relationship worked from there. Now, Advani ji comes into picture much later. When an Englishman comes to me that he wants us to publish a book of an Indian army man, but he was missing his name. So I tried to get and I found Jaswant Singh and wrote him a letter. He immediately came back, that's why, but I'll give you that. And when Jaswant Singh called me, so I was quite surprised that he's going to write something. And both me and Kapish met and he was ready. And then then Jaswant Singh was in the economy of the BJP at that time. So he would talk about us and the relationship through the authors would grow and authors will make relationship for others. So it's like a jalebi affair, wheel within the wheels. Then this happened. But other side, I had very good relations with Natwar Singh for a very long time. Not only that, R. Venkataraman. I know Gopal Gandhi called me when he was vice president, and he said, Vice President wants you to extend this exhibition by a day so that he can come to the 50th, 1976, I think, 86, attend this. I said, you can't do that because the exhibition is going to be closed tomorrow. So, but then R. Venkataraman said, okay, then our relationship grew. And I said, don't worry, after a couple of months we are having the word book fair. So he came and spent quite some time, and then we talked about it. It worked. And when R. Venkataraman we published, a lot of other authors came around. So I think, and sometimes I'm lucky also, like I'm lucky in the sense that I got an author of that caliber, but unfortunately the book has not sold. Cricket-wise, I would say Gavaskar has been a milestone for many others. In literature, we have history, I can say, because of A.L. Vasam and P.N. Pandey. We got D.P. Singhal, we have done Rima Ahuja, history of number of books came. Then we had Gayatri Devi. Fascinating character there. In literature also, Guldar got involved. Guldar got a number of film people got involved in it. So we have been, and it is not that we build it, we build the subject around. That what is the subject area, we can develop it. Like I just talked to him about Lucknow. So, there is a sentence there that a publisher must keep abreast of the time to know what can happen. And this is the right time to think of 2025, 26, not 24. 24 is all over. So those who are thinking and working forward to that, there may be risk. It may fall apart your thought, but 90% I would say it would succeed. Food is one thing. You can promote your country a lot. Kamla Punjabi and I have been very close, very close. I told Kamla, what are you doing all the time here? So Mr. Mehra, I will make you drink, you never drink. So I said, look, I don't drink as a professional or anything, but if something happens, fine. She took my hand and it took to one of the restaurants in Taj in Bombay. And she was the person who selected wines for Tatas, for Taj group of hotels, and used to go to France with Sir J.D. Tata. And she made me one, absolutely. Said, हमने कहा यार तो ये तो आपने किया और what do you do? Well, I choose food I travel to India all the place and travel food. Select food during my travel and recommend to the hotel chef, chief in them, then they prepare it. By the time I had the experience of doing a book called Dakshin on South Indian food, because once I was in Chennai, one of our distributors took me home and offered me a dosa, which is the best dosa I had in my life. It was not big, small, and filled with something I do not know. So I asked, who is done? My lady has done. Actually, the lady has not done, somebody else has done. Okay, I said, Maddy, you would do that? I will do it. And then we did this book. Then when she did that book, she took us 2 years to do that. A number of ideas came. Book sold 50,000 copies in hardcover in USA.
Wow.
In a book club in San Francisco.
Wow.
The Vijay Amrita group, they have got all this, so they bought 50,000 copies. In Australia, my chairman Terry Kitson, he said, you have to send a cook from India, send the spices, and we will have a kitchen set to make this book. They did it. Then England bought that stock from HarperCollins Australia and HarperCollins UK, and they marketed. So that gave us a lot of idea. In Bombay, in Fort area, they, you know Childa. Childa is based on Childa. There is a shop called Ganesh, which is next to Tata's house. Our office, Oak Chambers, was on the other side. Ganesh was on the other side, was Aslan and JRD's office. So we used to go and eat in Ganesh thing. He said, tomato omelette lao inke liye. So we used to have tomato, a lot of tomato and this thing, chila, and very nice. So if you eat 2, then the whole meal for next 24 hours is over. So we used to have it. So one day I was making, Ruskin used to come and stay with me. So, and he always fond of omelette. So I would prepare omelette for him. So I used to put little tomato into that. So one day probably I put more tomato than the. So I said, how do you find it? So he said, look, I think it is tomato omelette. So that became a slang for us. When I published, we came out with this book, I sent him a copy. So he said, yeah, I've read that piece. In fact, I eat tomato omelette more than an omelette because his teeth are not working.